Special thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace.
This is one of the best kept secrets in street bikes. It's a V-twin sport bike that you can buy used for less than 2,500 bucks. And in fact, I bought this one for $1,800 the way it sits. This is the Gen 2 SV650, and I'm gonna tell you guys all about it. And speaking of things that look great and go fast, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. I'm a big believer in purpose, and I also believe that a lot of people have a great idea just kind of sitting in the tank that they could be marketing online. Now, I'm not a web designer. I can barely get the Wi-Fi on my refrigerator to work, but Squarespace has stuff built in that makes it easy for you to design your own website. It's awesome that Squarespace has this new feature called Design Intelligence. What it does is it helps you make a clean, more professionally looking website without needing to know design stuff. The cool thing is you don't have to start from scratch. Squarespace has its own professionally designed templates that you can start with and you're already ahead of the game. Then you can customize those things to make them look like your brand, and it also is optimized for mobile instantly. And if you're doing e-commerce and you're taking payments, Squarespace Payments lets you set that up right inside the website and gives your customers multiple different ways to pay. Guys, it's so easy that even a motorhead like me can do it. So go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Srkcycles and save 10% on your first purchase of a website or a domain. So at 1,800 bucks, yeah, okay, it's got a couple scratches. The paint still looks good. It does have a Leo Vince exhaust on it. You know, it's got some tape right here. Both turn signals on it. And it also definitely needs new tires. Super tip, anytime you're buying a used bike, save up a couple bucks for tires, because the tires might look good, but these tires are completely outdated. So what's unique about this motorcycle is it's a genuinely fun motorcycle to ride. Like anyone can ride it. Advanced riders can have a blast on this thing. It's also a great entry-level bike. Not super incredibly powerful, but great entry-level bike, much better than a 600 Super Sport. And this is also a great track bike. And put all those three things on the same category, it's actually kind of unusual. And it partly is what made these things a legendary motorcycle on the street. That's a trifecta that most bikes can't claim, however, this one can. Now, to really understand the SV650, we have to rewind a couple years back to the early 90s, where a little company called Ducati just released their Monster. The Monster was a stripped-down, aggressive-looking V-twin motorcycle built around a trellis frame, and it was a massive success for Ducati. In fact, they're still making that bike today. Now, during 1990s, Ducati was doing great. They dominated World Superbike for most of the decade, and that success did not go unnoticed. It pushed the Japanese manufacturers to respond, mainly from Honda and Suzuki. Honda came out with their legendary RC51, and that response is what eventually gave us the SV1000, and what you see here, the SV650. So it's powered by a 645cc 90-degree V-twin that makes about 75 horsepower and 45 foot-pounds of torque. It goes through the 6-speed transmission with a wet clutch, not that awful dry clutch that Ducati uses, through a chain drive, and connecting you to the ground with a 160/60 17-inch tire, which is a significantly cheaper tire than what you're going to find on the back of a liter bike. It's got an all-aluminum frame and a rear monoshock suspension. And it weighs just a few pounds lighter than the equivalent 600 Super Sport, you know, like a Suzuki GSXR 600. Now, in a second, we're going to compare this to a GSXR 600, but first, let's talk about the price. Now, if your budget was 2,000 bucks, 2,500 bucks, you can easily buy one of these and probably one of the nicest versions of this bike. But back in 2009, when this bike was brand new, this thing sold for $69.99. Now you would think that, that's 17 years old. With inflation, this bike should be selling for, if everything stays the same, with inflation, this bike should be, the new version of this bike, and they still make this bike, should be selling for around 10,500 bucks. Not true. The brand new version of this motorcycle is only selling for about 8,100 bucks. Some dealerships have discounted them to 75, which is incredibly cheap. So compared to its sportier cousin, the GSXR 600, it's cheaper and lighter, but has a completely different power curve, which is why this is a better bike for the street, because it's actually power that you can use. What this means is you actually get full torque at spots where you're actually riding. Let me explain that a little bit better. First gear on this bike, at 4,500 RPMs, you're around 15 to 18 miles per hour. First gear on a GSXR 600, at 10,500 APMs, which is its peak torque curve, you're going 55 miles an hour. So unless you're on the highway, you're barely using it. This is much more streetable power. Now take that to the track, you're gonna have that down low grunt V-twin power coming out of any corner whenever you want it. Now where the 600 is gonna shine is if those straightaways are long enough that the 600 can catch up to you, and then you're not gonna catch it until you got a break and you got the next corner. Now, what I'm not saying is that this is a better, faster bike than the 600 Super Sport, because it's not. Where they saved money is mainly the suspension and the brakes. But that's why a lot of guys who are tracking these things or modifying them, what they're doing is they're putting GSXR 600 front ends on them, and then they're putting better brakes on them. Then it's still not comparable. I mean, the 600 is gonna be a faster bike, but you're gonna spend more money on that and bigger tires. So this is an all-around cheaper and great option. In terms of just having fun, it's really hard to beat this. Also, your fun is gonna be at a slightly lower speed. So this thing tops out around 130, depending on the gearing. You know, a 600 is gonna top out around close to 170, depending on the gearing. But if you were convincing all your buddies, hey, let's all get track bikes, let's all do it really cheap, the SV650 is a really good way to go. You can also get full body fairings for it with a belly pan and everything. This, you know, what you need for a track. And if you're looking for something on the street, this is a much better bike for the street because the power is actually usable at a more of a legal speed than what you'd be doing on a 600 or 1000 Super Sport. But to really know what it feels like, you gotta take it for a spin. So let's go ride it.
All right, so it's cold outside. I'm gonna let this thing warm up. Tires are not the greatest tires.
So even though these tires are not the best, you know, I don't put my trust that much in these tires, which reminds me of one of my favorite Bible verses. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight.
So initial thoughts about the ergonomics. It really does have, forget the ergonomics. We're gonna go back to the fact that it really has instant power right where you want it. Now, it's not so powerful that it's gonna start pulling the front end up without you knowing it. If you can wheelie the bike, you gotta you know, do it right. You gotta clutch it, and you can power wheel it if you know what you're doing. But it's not gonna startle you in a way where like, oh shoot, the front end's up. That's you know, and it's reasons like that I love this thing for an entry-level motorcycle. And I can't stand, I really hate when young kids, their first bike, they buy a liter bike or a 600 Super Sport. I think it's just dangerous, and you're asking to get hurt, to be honest. But in terms of ergonomics, these handlebars, they're clip-ons, but they rise up. So they're slightly above the triple clamp. So maybe it ends up being like 2 or 2.5 inches higher than what a Super Sport would be, which is all just weight and pressure that's getting taken off of your wrist, making the bike significantly more comfortable to ride. Now later we'll do a 0 to 60 run. It's not the most ideal circumstances to do one, but we'll see what it does in 30-degree weather. Now, even though this bike doesn't redline at 16,000 like a 600 would, or 18,000 like some of these smaller bikes, it still goes the whole way up to 11,000. That's a pretty high revving V-twin. There's no, to give you an example, a lot of the Harley Davidsons rev up to like 5 or 6. The other cool thing about this is a rider's motorcycle. There's no, you know, there's no traction control and all these fancy gizmos and gadgets and wheelie control and all that stuff that get in the way of you riding your bike. It's just you, the bike, and the road. It's simplistic in the fact that there's not that much to brake. It's fuel injected. It's fuel injected, so it's pretty much always going to work, even if the gas is not amazingly good gas. And you can see this bike's 17 years old. nothing about it looks old. I mean, it has stood the test of time. It doesn't have like a infotainment center that was trying to be super advanced at the time that now looks super dated. It just has a regular digital dash on it. So I mentioned something earlier about tires. When it comes to doing track days, leader bikes, which is 1000 cc sport bikes and above, they just eat tires. They maybe you'll get a track day, maybe 2 track days. They're so powerful that you spend a lot of time spinning them, and it just gets to be expensive. A back tire like that could be $300. You take a bike like this, and you're gonna see these back tires could last you significantly more track days, and they're gonna be a whole lot cheaper and possibly easier to get your hands on them. Now, if your goal is just like, I'm trying to be the fastest, I'm trying to be the baddest person out there, then yeah, go get yourself a big bad leader bike. If your goal is just to have fun and get faster, I've known a lot of very, very fast people who are pulling on the big bad bikes at the track, and they're riding 650s. Sometimes they're riding 390s. It really is. It's not about, if you want to learn and get faster, the best way to do it is on a slower bike, because you can't lean on the fact that, oh, I'm faster than him because of my bike. You'll also notice that, something that Suzuki does and a lot of the manufacturers do to save money is they'll use this. This is the same piece you see in the GSX-R, same piece you see in the GSX-R. A lot of swappable components, because what you think the GSX-R needs a more performance, high beam switch? No, it doesn't. If you were to ask me, Sean, what's the modern day? I know they still make the SV650. But what's the modern day version of the SV650? What bike gives you those same types of, accomplishes the similar thing? That's a pretty simple answer, and that would be the FCO7. If the Yamaha FCO7, now instead of a V-twin, it's a parallel twin, but it really accomplishes all the same stuff, and it's just an absolute blast to ride. I could get 60 right here. All right, let's do it right here. All right. There. That's not bad for a poor start. I think I definitely could have gotten it a little bit faster. The other thing about this bike, yes, it's a V-twin. No, it's not. There's not excessive vibration. It's pretty smooth. Yeah, it is. It's not as smooth as a parallel 4, but to be honest with you, up until right now, I haven't even thought about it or really even noticed that it was a V-twin. I just, normally you really feel that vibration. It kind of beats you up a little bit, and you're gonna feel it more. That's gonna be more exaggerated when you're on the highway for just miles and miles and miles. See if you can keep up. All right, on your mark, get set, go. Yep. All right, let's do a first gear pull, you and me. I'll go and you go. Yep. Well, if you're wondering how it compares to a Pan America, that ain't bad. It ain't bad for a 17-year-old bike. That's half the size of yours. And same engine configuration. Now, on the first gen of this bike, it was a trellis aluminum tubular bike, and it looked cool. And it was very European. It was very Ducati. This is the second gen, so they actually went to more of a sport bike style welded aluminum frame, and you know, obviously to keep the light down, to keep the weight down, and then in the third gen, I think it was the third gen, they decided, the third or fourth gen, they decided to change the name. And after everyone loved SV650, they're like, let's name it the Gladius. And it's like, what is the Gladius? What is a Gladius? And they did that for a couple years, and then they realized, I think sales just dropped because everyone was like, what is this? What are they doing with this name? And I think sales dropped because then the next generation, which I believe is the current generation, they just went back to the SV. Now, what's really funny is where I started this video talking about how the SV was kind of made because of the Ducati Monster. Go look up pictures of the latest Ducati Monster and tell me that does not look just like a Suzuki SV. So if you notice, I'm having fun. The bike's accelerating fast. It pulls very well. But what I'm not, I mean, I'm banging to the gears too, which shifting is fun. But what I'm not doing is 150 miles an hour or triple digits or anything excessively, you know, we're not even breaking the law, to be honest. That's where, you know, it's fun to have something like this where if you use it right, it's quick. It's like it's the old example of, would you rather, you know, drive a Ferrari slow or a Miata as fast as you can? Obviously the Ferrari, it gives you status points and is cool, but man, it's really fun to beat on a Miata. So this is kind of that bike, really fun to beat on, tons of fun, and if you know what you're doing, you could be pretty fast on it. So I think hands down, this is probably the best bike you can get for less than 2,500 bucks. It's really hard to beat it. Guys, we'll see you next time. Check out this video right here. Remember, it is not what you're riding, but where you're going.